Hello and welcome to the Unbundled Attorney Mastermind Podcast. My name is Dave Aarons and I'm the founder and CEO of Unbundled Attorney. In this podcast, we interview our unbundled attorneys, as well as the leading experts in the industry, to identify the best practices for converting leads into paying clients and how to ethically and profitably deliver unbundled legal services and other affordable options in your practice. To learn more about how our exclusive unbundled leads can help you grow your practice, visit our website at unbundledattorney.com. All right, welcome to the Unbundled Attorney Mastermind Podcast. I am really excited to be sitting here with Dia Rogers. Actually, I feel like I've been hounding you to have this interview and the reason I've been hounding you is just what we're going to be talking about today as far as the way in which you've been providing, unbundled legal services to the vast majority of your clients, and to unpack the impact that that's had on your practice, the amount of people you've been able to serve, just on all the different levels. So I really appreciate you taking the time today to have this interview with us and to explain the evolution of your practice and how you're providing these services to these clients these days. So thank you so much for being here and being willing to jump in the hot seat.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So with your kind permission, maybe you can give us just a little bit of background to how you got your start in the practice of law. And, I remember we were talking a little bit about, how you originally had worked for a period of time at a big firm and then made some transition. So maybe you can just talk briefly about the journey that's arrived you at running your own solo practice now.
Well, I would love to be able to say that it was always, the purity of the practice of law that is how I arrived at where I'm at today. But really, it was always a focus on life and lifestyle and how I wanted to live my life and what kind of choices I wanted to make for my life, for my family, and how I was going to structure and mold work and the practice of law around that as opposed to the other way around. So I did the normal thing. I went and worked for a big firm. I put in the hours. I was a slave to the billables.
That was right out of law school, eh? And where did you go to law school again?
I went to Thomas Jefferson.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I worked for a period in San Diego, and then I went chasing the bigger jobs in LA, the bigger litigation on a massive scale that I thought I was looking for, that I wanted to have experience in, and where I wanted to go with my education, and it just turned out not to be as fulfilling as I expected it to be.
We could fast forward a little bit as it relates to some of these tools and give people a window into the systems that you have in place, and maybe walk through a client experience from like when a lead comes in and so forth. So we'll cover that in just a minute, I think. Mm-hmm. But before we get there, one of the things that makes this so much more possible for you is that you start implementing a lot of limited scope unbundled legal services in your practice. Mm-hmm. And that lends itself well to having technology that streamlines the delivery of services, doing flat rates, not getting involved in heavily contested litigation unless you're really, deciding that's really what is in the best interest of you and the client. Mm-hmm. And so, maybe we could just unpack a little bit how you first started with offering limited scope services. You talk about like what that means to you and how that's impacted your practice, and then maybe once we've really laid that out, then we can start to talk about how you use some of these tools to deliver these limited scope services, which is I think we talked about is almost 90% or more,
maybe more,
of the clients that you enroll are enrolling for some type of limited scope or unbundled legal service.
Yeah. Right? So I think in the beginning we just started doing flat fees, unbundled piecemeal work, just out of necessity, because we didn't want to hire the billing person to come in and input it or do the invoicing every month. Nobody, neither my husband nor myself, wanted to sit there and review billing or invoicing once a month. Right. So it was kind of, this is an easy shortcut. Let's just cut out the billing person and we can just do flat fees. Easy.
Okay.
So I think that's where that originally came from. But then as we started using flat fees more and more and limited scope only for pieces of each person's case, the benefits of that, it became apparent that was much better for us and how we were choosing to run the firm and in our lives, because you weren't involved in the day-to-day, I'm going to say, micromanagement of the case.
Right.
So, all of the phone calls, all of the client contacts, all of the contacts of opposing counsel, all the calls to the clerk, all the, what date is this hearing on, all that is taken care of by the client. And they're just contacting us to say, this is my hearing date. This is what somebody told me I need. I don't have any idea what that is, but can you help me with that? So a lot of the things that really rack up and I think inflate a lot of attorney billing and create really big bills for clients that really aggravate them are those things that don't really further the case, that technically you're not supposed to bill for, but our attorneys are completely entitled to receiving, the value of their time for dedicating their time to working on those things. But if you can kind of cut out those things and just let me do the work, which is do the paperwork, go to the court appearance, make the argument,
right.
It really lessens the client's fees, the amount they're going to come out the pocket for their case.
Yeah.
And it also, on my end, it's beneficial because I'm not dealing with the aggravation of the little tiny things, in my opinion.
Well, and having to micro bill as well, right?
Yeah. And I don't think anybody feels good about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that any attorneys really feel good about charging $30 or $45 for an email.
Right.
I know clients certainly don't.
Yeah.
And if I can kind of alleviate that and not really feel it on my bottom line, then win-win.
Well, yeah, let's clarify one thing real quick. So when we're talking about flat rates, some attorneys may confuse that as being like, oh, you've got a contested divorce, I'll charge you $5,000 as a flat rate, right? Whereas as opposed to limiting the scope to some specific tasks, and it's going to be flat rate for these things, and I'm not going to be doing those things. So can we perhaps be a little more specific or detailed on like some example types of limited scope services or an example limited scope service you would offer to the client, the type of conversation you would have with them around the different options and how to arrive at an option that would work best for them, and how that could express itself as a flat rate.
Okay, so I know that there are a lot of attorneys, I've had the conversations with them myself, about freaking out about how can you possibly quote them a flat fee for a certain amount of service and you have no idea how much time you're going to spend on it. And to that, I really just say, well, aren't you doing the same thing? That kind of judgment and that kind of offer is happening when you quote someone a retainer.
Right.
You're going to quote them $3,000, $5,000, $25,000, whatever it is. You're making a judgment about how much upfront you're going to need in a retainer to make it beneficial for you to work the case, even if you're billing monthly and sending invoices monthly. And I think that kind of analysis is just happening on a very small scale with the flat fees, which is, okay, someone comes to me and they need a divorce started. They need an initial motion done at the same time. What I'm trying to think about is, in my interaction with them, how much client contact and hand-holding do they need throughout the conversation?
Okay.
So I can figure out, is this someone that I can, quote my absolute rock bottom fee amount and know that they will really just leave me alone to do the work and punch out the paperwork and be done?
Yes.
Or is this someone who's going to need a couple more phone calls? It's not going to be, I can't just call and say, hey, give me this piece of information and click. Is someone who's going to keep me on the phone for half an hour, and that's going to factor into my flat fee quote. So maybe that's not someone I would charge a flat fee of $500 to open up their case.
That's something you're evaluating in the consultation based on. So what are you thinking about? It's like, okay, how talkative is this person? What's their personality type? What's the complexity of the case? How many lawyers have they been through?
How difficult is it going to be for me to get the information that I need? And how quickly am I going to be able to do that from them? Am I going to be able to just send them an email saying I need X, Y, and Z, and then I'm going to get it right back?
Right.
Or am I going to get it back in maybe like 2 weeks because I have to remind them a couple times and then they still don't really understand and I have to call them? All of that is going into my consideration of how much I'm going to quote them. And what I'm saying is that kind of consideration is happening when you're doing hourly too. And am I going to tell this person that the deposit they need to make into the attorney-client trust account is $3,000 or $5,000?
Right.
How much are they going to spend in my fees, billed hourly, in the first month? And you need to factor that in when you give that quote to them. And that's just what I'm doing with the flat fees too. So someone that, I could tell is really straight to the point, knows what they're talking about, isn't really all over the place. They're just very direct, and we're done with our initial phone call in like 10 or 15 minutes. Quoting them a $500 flat fee to punch out a couple papers, I know is not going to be a big hassle. Some other person that might need a longer phone call, and really isn't aware of all the facts and the questions that I'm asking, and not really able to give me the information right away that I need, I know they're going to take a little bit more from me in terms of time, effort, energy to be able to deliver to them what they're asking me to do.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, I would think, this is the feedback we get from a lot of other unbundled attorneys, is the clients will often say, well, I just want you to handle everything for me. I'd rather just you do things from start to finish. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of attorneys will say, okay, well, if you could fit this initial retainer in your budget, 1,500, and then you can make these payments per month, mm-hmm. then, we can just do everything for you. Mm-hmm. And that seems like an easier path. Like, I just want you to do all for me, right? Mm-hmm. How do you push back on that? To some degree, push back in the sense of because the reality is, if you're going to be paying a retainer and they're going the hourly billable model, really what you're doing is you're just making it a little bit more accessible because you're not requiring as much upfront,
right.
And they're using software to fit a payment plan that works in their budget. But in reality, it's still roughly the same amount of hours because you're not necessarily empowering the client to handle parts on their own, mm-hmm. right? And so that's what. So it isn't actually really any more affordable
right.
as far as total cost.
Right.
It's just more accessible because they can pay as they go.
Right.
Right. So, whereas when you are providing unbundled services to so many clients that you are actually saving them on the cost mm-hmm. of what they're going to pay out of pocket for their legal issues. Right. Mm-hmm. It's going to be more affordable because it's less hours.
Right.
Because they're handling some parts. So how do you empower the client? Well, first of all, when they, I'm sure you get some clients that say, well, I just want you to do everything for me. Talk about that conversation real quick. And then also we can maybe start to explain a little bit more about how you empower the client to handle some parts on their own. What are some of the things that clients can, more easily do on their own? What are the types of things you can coach them on doing that can start to reduce the cost for themselves?
Mm-hmm. Well, as far as pushing back on the hourly retainers, I don't find that you have to push back that hard.
Okay.
One of the reasons maybe why is because when I have that conversation with a client and they say, because I give them the option, look, there's two different kinds. There's the old school hourly big retainer. There's the new school limited scope, unbundled.
Old school, new school?
Yeah. You want me to take everything from your shoulders because either your job is too demanding or you just can't handle or you just don't want to. We can do that. But it's going to cost you. And it's going to be a big chunk up front. And so when I tell them what the big chunk is, and then I tell them, or you could do the unbundled and manage some of it yourself, and I will still be here. I am still a reference for you. Right? You can still contact me. You still have my number. You can still send me emails for this, that, or the other thing. I know it's only going to take a second here or there, and all I'm doing is maintaining the client contact so that when they do want to hire me, I'm the one that they come to.
Sure.
Right? For the next however 18 years sometimes, right?
Sure.
So when I tell them that you manage your own case and, it could be 1,500 or 25, or you're going to hire me for full representation and you're going to pay for it, it's going to be a $5,000 retainer and your first month's couple of bills might be $10,000. It's not that difficult.
Okay, right. When you really unpack what it's actually going to cost if you want me to do everything for you.
Right. You're going to pay a big retainer up front and then your first month's bill might not cover it.
Right.
You still might have to come out the pocket to replenish your retainer and pay on your invoice.
Right.
So, the first couple months you might be out $15,000. And would you rather do that, or you want to just pay me $1,500 and get the paperwork done and just kind of see how it goes? Sure.
So what are the types of things that you're helping the client do themselves, and how do you help them do those aspects themselves?
I help the clients realize that they can go to hearings on their own, like the administrative ones, picking a new date.
Okay. Right.
Just telling the judge what the status is and whether or not they filed a judgment or they're moving the case along. Those are things you could just show up for until you're not arguing about anything. You're not worried about getting slapped with any kind of order that's going to impact your life. You're just going to kind of show up and say, yes, Your Honor. I tell them which hearings those are.
Okay.
And you can go.
Right.
Or, yes, you can pay me because you can't afford to take off work or you just don't want to or you're freaked out about talking to a judge in a courtroom. Sure, I will go. Absolutely. But you don't have to.
Okay.
You can go yourself. And these are those ones. I will tell you which ones they are.
Okay, perfect.
And a lot of times from clients, the response is, really? You'll tell me which ones you don't have to go to? So I don't pay you?
Yeah.
They're a little bit taken aback by that because I guess everybody considers the attorneys to be the grubby, money-hungry, I'm going to charge you up the wazoo for any little telephone call, text, email, whatever. And so when I'm upfront with them about that, that's the kind of reaction I get.
Right.
I'm not trying to, take you for a ride. You want to get divorced. I want to help you get divorced.
Right.
What could be simpler?
And so I would assume that you have a lot more clients retaining your services as a result.
Yeah, but I mean, they overlap, right? Because I'm constantly getting more, and I'm shedding off more clients at a quicker rate as well, as opposed to the hourly ones that you can be on for years, right?
Right.
So the new clients that are hiring me as an attorney on their case, they're off in 3 months. So clients that are making payments, even monthly payment clients, are only paying for a series of a couple or 3 or 4 months.
Sure. So that's kind of the offset of it, hey?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So it's not
So you have
like
a little bit more attrition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
But generally speaking, it's a more attractive offer, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And it's definitely more attractive also because they feel invested. Like, it's not just you hire an attorney, they go out into their office and do their work, and then you show up at court, and then you either win or lose, or, you had a good result or a bad result, and you don't really know how that happened or why. But with the unbundled, the limited scope clients, they know what's going on. It's the turnaround time on their paperwork is very short. We're having discussions about what their next steps are all the time,
right.
Where they're coming from, where they're going, because they're the ones who need to manage it and be able to decide whether or not and when to call me again.
Yes.
So it's not like, they hire me and then don't hear from me for 2 or 3 months and then see me at the court hearing. No.
Yep.
So they definitely feel like it's their case and they didn't just hand it off to somebody and they don't know what happened or how they arrived at this horrible order or a great order or not. They're involved. It's their case.
Yep.
And that makes them feel responsible for it. They feel like they're working with me on their case as opposed to just I'm working their case and they don't know what's going on.
Well, and it just so happens that there's thousands of clients out there, representing 70 to 75% of the market that would be very grateful for the opportunity to work with an attorney like yourself that offers these options, because at the end of the day, it's going to be more affordable for them, but also it's profitable for you, but it's very affordable for them, and they're getting the access to the legal services that they badly need in a way that the average working family or lower or middle income person can fit in their budget. And so that's where we go all the way back full circle to why you left that big firm in the first place.
Right.
Now you have the opportunity to have control of your own lifestyle. Work virtually as you as chosen. Some people can work in person with the clients, but work virtually, work the hours you want, and also more importantly, be able to make a difference in people's lives by giving them access to the services that they otherwise wouldn't be able to afford. So thank you so much for your generosity, your time, and helping me shine a light on what's possible here. And I think what's still on the table, I think, for so many other attorneys to really get to understand this business model a little bit better. And I think it's a real key component to actually having a measurable shift in the affordability of legal services in this country. We have this access to justice problem, but in reality, it's a solvable problem.
Yeah.
It can be solved by the for-profit sector, by attorneys just better understanding this model and learning how to use technology and offer these services in the ways that we've described. So really appreciate you just laying out how this has made it possible for your practice, and also made such a difference in the way you live your life now relative to the way it was before. Any final before we wrap up, any final points, things you've taken away from the last couple of years or so of implementing these service options, or anything that you would say, hey man, we really got to hit this final point, or anything that I missed, you think, before we wrap up?
I mean, the only thing for some reason...
Any asks, right?
The only thing for some reason on the front of my mind right now is just, I went to that Clio conference, I think it was last year or the year before, I can't really remember at this point.
The Cloud Conference,
and heaven help me, I can't remember who the speaker was, but I do remember one of the things that he said was that the opposite of poverty is not wealth, but it's access to justice. And that's just something I think is paramount. And this is one of the ways that, this is one of the ways that I could help in that area. So many of the people that you talk to just think that from the outset, there's no way that they can hire an attorney, that there's no way that they can hire representation, and they're just going to get, pardon my language, but screwed.
Yep.
and I should just tell them, right, that they should walk away right now.
Yeah.
And no, if you're making services affordable at $100 increments, at $500 increments, at $1,000 increments, even families that $500 is a lot for, they can still get their paperwork done. They can still get it done correctly. They can still make payments over time. They can still have an attorney as a resource to call or text or email. And just having that access for people who just automatically think that it's not possible, I think is the most. It's the most important thing.
Yeah, above all, that's why we're doing what we're doing, That's why we're running this podcast and all this stuff. So I really appreciate that, your commitment to that.
And thanks for allowing me to be able to serve more people that way.
Yeah, certainly been a lot of people we've been serving. So I really thank you for all the work you're doing and your willingness to work with folks on this basis and your commitment to walk all the way back from when you walked out of that firm.
Yeah.
And you knew that wasn't, why you became a lawyer. It's not what you're here to do. And you answered that call, and you continue to do that every single day. So thank you so much for being willing to be willing to apply that every day.
Thanks.
All right. So thank you so much for sharing. For those of you that are listening, watching the episodes, we're doing it as a video podcast now. We certainly appreciate everything that you're doing to, learn the nuts and bolts and strategies and find a little bit better way to approach this so that you can serve more clients. And fortunately, you don't have to, go broke doing it anymore, because, Unbundled Legal Services is ethical. We got the technology and all the systems and tools available to make it possible so that you can make a great living and help a lot of people at the same time. And it just feels so darn good to know that we can all do that together. We don't have to volunteer our way out of this thing. So thanks so much for being a part of this movement. And we certainly look forward to seeing you on the next episode. For more information about how our exclusive Unbundled leads can help you grow your practice, visit our website at unbundledattorney.com. You can watch each new episode of the podcast on the Unbundled Attorney YouTube channel, or if you prefer to listen, you can find us on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. And be sure to subscribe so you get each new episode as soon as it's available. And remember to leave us your review on iTunes. We read each and every one of them and really appreciate your support of the show. Once again, thanks for listening.